How's the cricket score? I gotta check. Oh, another 100 for Williamson. On your mate. We're gonna win, I think. As we should. Someone posted cricket posting in my Discord earlier. Reminded me I really do gotta do that that cricket stream. Where I test chat about cricket. It was specifically this tweet. Which is just a picture of positions in cricket. What am I looking at? It's just a description of every single possible fielding position in cricket. A thing you need to understand is only 9 of these positions are filled at any given time. So like, these are all different positions you'll be in. And also a lot of them, so, alright. I'm gonna give you the lowdown on what your major positions are. And trying to like avoid including modifiers in that. So you've got a whole region here, which is kind of defined by the word leg. And more often than not, you're only going to have one fielder in this area at any given time. Can you see my, hold on, I need to bring out my cursor. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. So this whole region here is defined by the word leg, basically. And you'll generally only have one fielder fielding there at any given time. Everything else is just a modifier. Short, straight, fine, square. All of those are just little modifiers. But mostly you're just here as the leg fielder. You'll have you might have a fine leg and a square leg. Here you've got mid-wicket. Then you have mid-on, mid-off, cover, point, and then third man. Outside of that, oh, and the whole slip cordon as well. But the slip cordon is kind of a special case. Can you point out where the batter and pitcher equivalents would be? The pitcher is the bowler and runs in from anywhere. He'll either start running in from like about here, or he could start his run up from like all the way back here, depending on how much of a run up he needs or whatever. And they will deliver the ball from about here. The batter at the striker's end, the one actually facing the ball, is standing here. He has a partner who is standing this end of the pitch. And then a wicket keeper, which is the catcher, is standing behind the stumps here. So there's 11 people in a team. All 11 of those players will be on the field if you're the fielding team. One of them will be the bowler. Whoop. One of them will be the bowler, one of them will be the wicketkeeper, and the other 9 will be somewhere in any of these positions. And yeah, like I said, there's kind of just regions of the field, and then you have modifiers like off, long, deep, Silly means really close to the bat. Fine and square generally refers to... So square generally refers to like horizontal from the batsman. So anybody who's fielding like in a line like this would be defined as square. And then fine generally refers to a acute angle behind the batsman. So you're more fine if you're sort of towards the behind the batsman. What if you replaced all your Final Fantasy XIV raid position language with cricket positions? You could do it. You'd probably have wicketkeeper, fine leg, square leg, like a mid wicket, maybe a deep mid wicket. You'd have nobody actually fields here, the quote-unquote straight hit. Nobody ever fields here. So a bowler, I guess, would be one of your positions in 14 raid. Then you'd have a cover, then you'd have a point, and then you'd have a third man. There's a really good video, actually, that I've seen. Hold on. I'll find it. I need to go away for now. Cricket explained. Help, I can't spell. For baseball fans. If you understand anything about baseball, this video will explain it to you.
Cricket explained if you already know baseball.
Alright, to get this started, I want you to imagine a game much like baseball, except there are only 2 bases, and they're basically where home plate is and where the pitcher's mound is. To score a run in this game, you simply have to reach the next base. So if you put the ball in play and you make it to the pitcher's mound, that's a run. And then if you're able to make it back to home plate, then you score 2 runs on that play. This game is played in the middle of an oval, so there's no foul area. You can hit the ball behind you, you can hit it to the side.
So you can see how it's not actually that complicated
on screen.
on
The pitchers are allowed to bounce the ball. If you can picture this game in your mind, you are 75% of the way to understanding cricket. The rest of it is details. Before we get started, I just want to say that I'm going to be explaining this like I would to a friend of mine who knows baseball and wants to know about cricket. I'm probably going to be switching between baseball and cricket terminology a little bit more freely than maybe somebody who's a hardcore cricket fan might be comfortable with. Feel free to correct me in the comments, but what might be more fun is if you made a companion video that explains baseball.
What if I made a reaction stream instead?
All right, let's get started.
Basic gameplay.
So cricket is a game played between 2 teams of 11 players. When a team is fielding, all 11 of its players are on the field at the same time. 9 players are out in the field at the various positions, and then there's 1 bowler, who is basically the pitcher, and 1 wicketkeeper, who is basically the catcher. And then the team that is batting has 2 players at bat at any given time. These batters stand at opposite ends of the pitch.
It's not that far between pitcher and the batter. So the pitch, I think, is defined by, I think it's 22 yards is the distance crease to crease. So something like 20-ish meters between bowler and batter.
A narrow rectangle that's in the middle of the oval that is the cricket field. At the ends of the pitch are 2 wickets, which are these little structures that have 3 stumps and 2 bails. The stumps are the 3 pieces of wood that are in the ground, and the bails are these 2 little pieces of wood that rest on top of the stumps.
Now, okay,
our play begins
I'll admit, this is where it gets really confusing. So, This is called the wicket. This is also called the wicket. And when a batter gets out, it's also called a wicket. So, admittedly, uh, admittedly that gets confusing. But like it makes sense in context. It makes sense in context.
When the bowler, which is basically the pitcher, bowls the ball to the batter. The bowler is ultimately trying to break the wicket, which would get the batter out, and more on that later. The batter is trying to protect the wicket and put the ball in play. If the ball is put in play and the batter and the teammate are able to switch places, so basically assume the other one's position, the team...
So I don't remember how much detail he goes into on what constitutes illegal delivery. You don't have to bounce it. However, if you bowl it on the full, if you don't bounce it and the ball passes the batter above their waist, that's a no ball. And if you bounce it and it passes the batter over their head, that's a wide. So there's kind of like, it's a bit like a strike zone kind of idea, but just a little more complicated with like different rules for being on the full or bouncing. No, the batsmen will never run into each other. Occasionally you do have collisions between like fielders and batsmen, but generally that gets resolved pretty amicably. There's kind of like there's this concept in cricket called the spirit of the game, where if you're a little bit of a dickhead, people will kind of frown at you. Like, you might do everything legally, but if you're a little bit of a dick about it, then you'll kind of get, like, frowned at by the whole cricket community.
Team has scored a run, and if they can do that again, then they score 2, and if they can do that again, they score 3, etc. There are no strikes in
cricket.
Hang
on. We'll take it back a little bit here.
If the ball is put
Let him
to
finish his
break
thoughts.
the wicket, which would get the
In
batter
one full
out,
thought.
and more on that later. The batter is trying to protect the wicket and put the ball in play. If the ball is put in play, and the batter and the teammate are able to switch
one run.
places, so basically assume the other one's position, the team has scored a run. And if they can do that again, then they score 2, and if they can do that again, they score 3, etc. There are no strikes in cricket. The batter can just choose not to swing if they don't want to. And there's no penalty for hitting a batter with a legally thrown ball. Batters are expected to protect the...
Yes, he did just take a shot to the nuts. Yes, he's wearing as we would call it, a box in cricket. You would call it a cup, I think, in America. And yes, it still hurts very badly when you get hit in the box.
Wicket and not let themselves get hit. In fact, as we'll see in a little bit, there are actually...
In fact, I remember a teammate of mine in school during training didn't... So, okay. So let me back up and explain a little bit here. So generally for a team, you will have a shared couple of boxes where if you don't have your own box, you can wear a team's box. Now it's very important that if you're wearing the team's box, you are wearing 2 pairs of underwear so that there is no skin-to-skin contact between you and the box, so that you insert it between your 2 pairs of underwear. This is it's still kind of gross, but like at least you're not sharing dick and ball space with everybody else on your team. So I had a friend, a teammate, who showed up to practice one day, wasn't wearing 2 pairs of underwear, and didn't bring his box. And he was like, fuck it. It's just training. I'm going to go out anyway and do my practice. Literally, first ball, got hit in the ball sack by the fastest bowler on our team, and took a week off school. The sound that he made being hit in the balls is a sound I will never forget. And I wouldn't want anybody else in the world to hear the sound that he made uh, on that contact. It was bad. Always wear a box.
Actually, situations where a batter can be called out if they allow themselves to be hit with the ball. There is the equivalent of a ball in cricket. It's called a wide. And if the umpire has determined that the bowler has bowled the ball wide, 1 run is awarded to the batting team. There's also some...
I will add to that, not just 1 run is awarded. That bowl doesn't count. So, especially if you're playing limited overs cricket, you've just given a run to the other team for free, and you still have to bowl that ball again. So that's a really important thing about extras.
Something in cricket called a no ball, which is when the umpire has determined that the ball has been delivered illegally.
No ball.
And there's a couple dozen different reasons why
get a
an
run
umpire might
and
call
an extra
a
ball.
no ball. If the umpire calls a no ball, just like a wide, 1 run is awarded to the batting team.
This is the most common no ball, where the bowler has stepped fully over the line with their foot. There's no part of their foot that is behind the line. That's a no ball. Another important distinction is if you give away a no ball in limited overs cricket, which we'll get to, don't worry. I'm using a few terms that you may not understand yet, but if you bowl a no ball in limited overs cricket, the next ball to the batsman is what's called a free hit, where you can't be bowled and you can't be caught out. So you just get to have a smack.
In cricket, the batters stay on the field until they are out. So they continue to bat and score runs until they are put out. This means that, just like in baseball, a batter can be out with 1 single swing of the bat, or they can stay at bat, I guess forever. But it's common for a batter to score between like 20 and 50 runs in an at-bat, and it's not unheard of for a batter to hit 100. This is called a century, and it's very fun.
100s are like big deals. The best batsman in the world generally will score across all forms of cricket, maybe like 100 to 150 centuries in their career, and that's like the best batters. That's over their entire career. So the run scoring in baseball, nothing like cricket. You are scoring between 200 to, depending on the type of game, between 200 to 500, 600 runs in an innings. And so a lot of those runs won't come from just running. This will get explained now.
The boundary.
Along the perimeter of the cricket field is the boundary. This can be a rope or a little cushion type thing, or it could be a short fence or a wall. When a ball is put in play and it reaches or goes past the boundary, that is called a boundary. A ball that rolls and hits or passes the boundary or bounces over the boundary like a ground rule double is worth 4 runs for the batting team. A ball that is hit over the boundary, so basically like a home run, is worth 6 runs for the batting team.
So a large number of your runs in any given innings are going to be from boundaries. Especially in limited overs, the shorter types of cricket. You will score the majority of your runs from boundaries. How heavy is a cricket ball? I don't actually remember offhand. Quite heavy. How heavy is a cricket ball? 5.5 ounces minimum. And must not exceed 5 3/4 ounces. For those of you in not America, that's 155 grams to 163 grams.
Outs.
There are several ways that a batter or runner can get put out.
And very
cricket,
hot,
and they
very
boil
firm.
down to 2 basic categories. A batter can be caught out, which is just like baseball. They hit a ball in the air and a fielder catches it. or they can be out if the fielding team knocks the bails off the stumps of the wicket.
This is a good run out right
you
here.
are in a position where that could put you out. There's a few different ways this could happen. You could be run out. This is where you are trying to score a run, but they knock the ball into the wicket before you reach the crease.
So this is comparable directly to like I don't know what you call, like a base out, whatever the fuck you call it, when you get someone out by throwing the ball to the base before they make it. Just instead of throwing it to a person, well, sometimes you're throwing it to a person, but a lot of the time you're also throwing it directly at the stumps to break them. The important thing is to get somebody out, run out. The stumps have to break. So if you throw it to, like, say, if the wicketkeeper was standing behind the stumps and ready to catch it, if you're throwing it from further away, that wicketkeeper still has to catch it and then break the stumps with the ball in their hands in order for that person to be run out.
Defines the place where you are safe. By the way, the bat is part...
That it hurt to get hit with? It does hurt to get hit with. I can tell you from experience, from many years of playing cricket, yes, it hurts. There is a technique to catching the ball, because you don't use gloves in the outfield in cricket. There is a technique to catching the ball where you are spreading your hands as wide as they can, first of all, just for surface area for catching, but also to just kind of make your hands quite loose. And as you're catching the ball, you generally are moving your hands with it so that you're not just like immediately stopping the ball. You're kind of cushioning its catch and slowing it down. So you need to, like, you don't want to just be generally just sticking your hand out and catching a cricket ball, because that's going to fucking hurt. In general, you want to try and cushion it a little bit
when determining whether or not you are safe. You can be bowled out.
Oh, yeah. That's actually an important distinction here.
Before you reach the crease that defines the place where you are safe. By the way, the bat is part of your body when determining whether or not you are safe.
So that is an important thing. If this bat was over this line before those stumps got broken, he would be safe. So holding onto your bat is really important. And in fact, in general, if you're running more than one run, if your plan is to try and run more than one run, you will only want to just barely touch your bat over this line while your body's still standing somewhere out here to shorten the distance that you have to run. So there's a kind of technique there that you need to make sure you're not running as much or running more than you have to run.
You can be bowled out, and these are very exciting. This is where the bowler sends the ball to you, and the ball bounces past you and knocks the bails off the stumps. A batter can also be put out.
Do the batters like yell at each other if they want to keep running? Yes. Constantly. And in fact, it is, I would say, in more than like, in a good proportion, somewhere like 30 to 50% of the cases of a batter being run out is because of a problem in communication between the two batsmen. Like there's some miscommunication between the two, where one wants to run, the other doesn't. One of them commits and the other doesn't, and then suddenly you're in a situation where you'll be run out. So clear, one of the most important things about batting is clear, concise communication between you and your partner, and always having somebody whose call it is. So generally, if the ball is hit in a direction, so if the ball is hit, hang on, I gotta bring up my bird again. If the ball is hit anywhere behind this line, so back here in this zone, it's going to be the non-striker, so the person who didn't make didn't face the ball. It's going to be their call whether to run or not, because they are running to the danger, if you know what I mean. Because any ball that's around here is closer to this end of the pitch to get thrown back in. And then same if the ball is hit down in this direction, it's going to be the striker, whoever faced the ball, they're running to the danger now, so they get to make the call on whether there is a run or not to be made, basically. That's the general gist of it. But yes, there is a lot of miscommunication, and like being able to effectively communicate at the crease is a very important part of batting.
And knocks the bails off the stumps. A batter can also be put out by the wicketkeeper if the batter moves past this line here called the popping crease, and the wicketkeeper gains possession of the ball and knocks the bails off the stumps. This is called being stumped out. A batter can
So that'd be a bit like if in baseball you threw a ball and it was like a fair, like a strike, but for some reason the catcher was allowed to touch home plate if the batter was not touching home plate and get him out. Kind of vibes. That'd be kind of the comparable situation. Obviously it would be ridiculous in baseball, but not a common way to get out in cricket is to be stumped.
Also be called out if they allow the ball to hit them and the umpire determines that the ball would have knocked the bails off the stumps if the batter had not interfered with their body. This is called a leg before wicket. So those are the most common.
Now, he doesn't explain leg before wicket very deeply there. Leg before wicket is one of the most complicated ways to be given out in cricket. The ball must, first of all, you can't be called out LBW if the ball pitched outside leg stump or if the ball hit the batsman outside the line of off stump while the batter was playing a shot. I'll try and explain this. So, hang on, can I find a good shot of the pitch? Okay, this will sort of do. Imagine a line that runs exactly down the middle of the pitch between these two wickets, right? Anything in that zone would be considered in line. That's in line with the stumps. Anything, if they're a right-handed batsman, which most people are, anything on this side would be considered outside off, and anything on this side would be considered outside leg. So the rule for LBW is if the ball bounces outside leg, you cannot be out LBW. If the ball hits the batsman on their pads outside the line of off stump while the batter is playing a shot, they can't be called LBW. But if you don't play a shot and it hits you outside the line of off stump, you could be considered LBW. Then beyond that, it's a determination from the umpire on whether the ball is going to continue on to hit the stumps. I'm just choosing to ignore this. Fuck off. Sorry, somebody else did this. This might seem callous, but somebody else said almost the exact same message the other day as I was ending stream. I think there's some nonsense going around Twitch. There is technology now called Hawkeye that can help determine whether or not the ball was going to hit the stumps. And often what will happen is if a team doesn't agree with an umpire's decision, they will refer it to the third umpire to determine whether or not the ball was going to hit the stumps or not. So yeah, that's the most subjective thing in cricket, is the umpire will have to make a decision on whether or not a ball was going to go on to hit the stumps or not. Pretty regularly in a match. But yeah, that's LBW.
Their body. This is called a leg before wicket. So those are the most common ways that you will see a batter or runner get put out by the fielding.
There are 5 more ways that you can be dismissed in cricket. You will never see those ways happen in a cricket game. Technically, the one that you might potentially see is hit wicket, which means if the batter hits over the knocks the stumps over, but with their bat or their body, they're out. That's the only one you might be likely to see. But beyond that, it's like very specific rules about you've touched the ball again, or you've interfered with play, or yada yada yada. There's a few very specific cases.
There are several other much less common ways for a batter to get out, and we will not be getting into them here.
Retiring is not out. If you retire, you are not considered out. So that is not a dismissal. If you retire and cannot continue to bat, and your team runs out of other wickets, your team finishes on whatever it is for 9, and you just have declared, basically.
Between baseball and cricket is in cricket, if the fielding team thinks that they have gotten a batter or runner
this is very important.
They first have to appeal to the umpire, who will confirm whether or not the batter or runner is out. So if a batter or runner would be out, but no one on the fielding team notices it, then play just continues, and the umpire will not just call them out.
And it's very important that when you yell, you're saying something. So the original thing is "how's that?" is what you're originally saying. That got shortened to "how's that?" Then "how's that?" And then really just now, all you'll really hear from the fielding team is "ah!" And you have to yell that's how you appeal. That's the way that you appeal. And if you don't yell like that, then nobody's going to understand what you're doing.
Players put out, the bowling and fielding team is said to have taken the wicket, and the batting and running team is said to have lost the wicket.
Overs.
Each series of 6 pitches or deliveries, which are called balls, is called an over. Each over has only one bowler, and each bowler only bowls 1 over at a time. So after a bowler has delivered 6 balls, they take a position in the field, and another player comes in to be the bowler for the next over. A bowler can field for an over and then come back to bowl again, but a bowler may not bowl 2 consecutive overs. If you're comparing this all to baseball, overs are similar to individual at-bats in terms of the flow of the game, right? It's like one series of deliveries that everyone's watching, and then there's a brief pause while a new player comes on, and then there's a next set of deliveries that everyone's watching. The difference, of course, is that it's the bowlers, the pitchers that are coming in and out, and not the batters.
Pretty straightforward, right? Once you actually understand what overs are, it kind of just makes sense. Is there any real strategy around handedness of the batsman like there is in baseball? Insofar as the field flips, so the leg side becomes the offside, and the offside becomes the leg side. So your field will move around. Also, your bowlers might take a slightly different approach to trying to get that batter out. You can either bowl what's called over the wicket or around the wicket, and basically that means over the wicket is your bowling hand is closer to the wicket. Around the wicket is your bowling hand is further away. So you can bowl from either side, and you might decide to bowl from one side or the other depending on the handedness of the batter that you're bowling to. And you can change that at any time. You don't have to, as long as you make it clear to the batter that you're bowling over or around the wicket, the umpire will announce it if you're changing it, but you can change it any time. You could bowl each different ball from a different side of the wicket if you really wanted to.
Formats.
Beyond everything that has been explained so far, the majority of the...
So, for example, actually, here's a really good example. So he is a right-hand bowler currently bowling around the wicket to a left-handed batter. So this is a prime example of where normally he would be bowling over the wicket most of the time, and generally you're going to bowl over the wicket. But in this situation where you've got especially a right-handed spin bowler up against a left-handed batter, you're going to probably bowl around the wicket to give yourself a better angle to attack the batter.
That has been explained so far, the majority of the details of the game that you watch will depend on the format of cricket that you're watching. There are two basic formats of the game of cricket. There's first class cricket and there's limited overs cricket. First class cricket is what a lot of people think of when they think of cricket. We're talking about the games that go on for several days. Everyone is wearing white. Maybe the Queen shows up. And first class cricket is most associated with the 5-day long test matches that international teams play against one another. They're scheduled for 5 days, but they might be completed before that. At the beginning of the first day, there is a coin toss to determine which team goes first. And then the sides alternate going through their entire batting order. This happens twice. So each team goes through its batting order twice for a total of 4 innings. Unless the team that goes second scores more runs than the team that went first, in which case they don't have to actually finish their entire innings. They just win the game. That was very simplified. The rules governing test matches could be their own 15-minute video. The other form...
So I don't think there's actually that much more to go into with test match cricket. I don't actually think he explained that very concisely. What happens is each team will bat twice and each team will bowl twice in a test match. And that must happen over the course of 5 days. Sometimes that will take longer than 5 days, and if you run out of time, like if your schedule finishes and you don't have a result, that's just a draw. Nobody won, nobody lost. But the goal is in a test match I think the really important thing to understand is that if you want to win a test match in cricket, you will be required to get the other team all out twice. You will have to take 20 wickets across 2 innings if you want to win a test match. There is no scenario in which you can win a test match without doing that. These are also the games where you're scoring like 500 plus runs. Important question, can you sleep? Do you play through that? No, so it's like you have like an 8-hour schedule per day. You play 3 sessions in a day. They're all about 2.5 hours long. So like really like 7 hours of actual gameplay. You'll start at about 11 in the morning, 10, 11 in the morning. You'll finish at around 6, 7 at night. And you play 3 sessions. You have the first session, then you have lunch, then you have the second session, then you have tea, and then you have the third session. Lunch is a slightly bigger break than tea, but still a pretty substantial break. And yes, so 5 days in a row of that. Generally, so the rules state there must be at least 80 overs bowled in a day. You will often bowl more than 80 overs, but 80 overs is like the minimum. And if you, as the bowling team, don't bowl 80 overs in a day, you essentially get punished. Or like the umpires will say, okay, we're playing later in the next day to get those additional overs in because you bowled so slow. Or they'll keep you on during that day to say, too bad, you bowled too slow, keep bowling while the light's still good. I should specify too, play can often end early in test match cricket due to bad light. You will often see the words bad light ended play at the end of a day. That means it's just it's too dark. You can't see anymore. So bad light will often end play in a test match. You don't these days. Sometimes you use lights in test matches, but more often than not, you're not using the stadium lights during test matches. So there is stadium lighting, and there will be for one dayers, which is what we're about to talk about here. One dayers and T20s, you will use stadium lighting. But in test matches, generally, and the reason comes down to visibility, because in a test match, you're using a red ball. In a limited overs match, you're using a white ball. This is much easier to see under stadium lights than a red ball is, because it's like we'll just get lost in shadows and stuff. And it's like there are now occasionally day-night tests where they will use what's called a pink ball. But it's not very common. Usually it's still just a daytime. Why do they use different color balls? Visibility, entirely visibility. Because in one day cricket, you're wearing colorful clothes, and generally you're often playing day-nighters, so it'll go into the night. You're using a white ball for pure visibility. And it's the opposite in test match. Everybody's wearing white in a test match, so you don't want to use a white ball. You've got to use a red ball to like allow it to be visible against players and the bowler and stuff.
Format of cricket is limited overs cricket, where each team is limited to a certain number of overs, and each innings comes to an end when the specified number of overs has been reached, or when all of the batters are out, whichever comes first. There are several types of limited overs cricket, but there are two that you are most likely to see. The first of these are the one-day internationals, or ODI. These are played between national teams, and each team has 50 overs. And then there's also T20 cricket, which is 2020 cricket, where both teams get only 20 overs.
No, now, Ambrose, this is where you would fail the test. We went over overs earlier in the video. Overs are a series of 6 deliveries. So a bowler will bowl 6 balls, and then that's called an over. Then they have to go away while somebody else bowls an over, and then that other bowler can come back and bowl another over. So over equals 6 balls. T20, you've got 120 deliveries. One day is you have 300 deliveries.
This style of cricket was invented to be more exciting and more fast-paced, and to put the length of an individual match around the same as other common sporting events around the world. An easy way to know whether you're watching a test match or a limited overs match is whether the teams are wearing white or colors.
Are a lot of players fielders / batters only, or does most everyone also bowl regularly? So the breakdown of a cricket team is something that is relatively fluid, and it's going to depend on your resources that you have available to you as a team. In general, you will want at least 5 people who are like dedicated batsmen. Their job is to score you runs. And then you will need some people who will be considered all-rounders in some way. Whether that means they're a wicketkeeper and a batsman, or whether that means they're a bowler and a batsman, they will be expected to contribute not only with the bat, but also with either the ball or by being the wicketkeeper or something like that. And in that case, your expectation to deliver with the bat isn't necessarily as high, but it's because you're also doing another job. Some wicketkeepers are incredible batsmen, though, so that rule doesn't always apply, but often does. Then you'll have so minimum in a limited overs game, you need at least 5 people who can bowl 10 overs or 4 overs. So you will, but the way the rules are laid out means that you will need to have a minimum of 5 people bowl in a cricket game, because no bowler can bowl in a 50 overs game. No bowler can bowl more than 10 overs. In a 2020 game, no bowler can bowl more than 4 overs. So it's written in the rules that you must have at least 5 people who bowl. Most of the time, teams will have 6 people, probably. You will have a change-up that you can introduce who doesn't necessarily bowl like every allotted over, but someone that you can bring in who is a bit of an all-rounder, who maybe bowls occasionally. Maybe it's one of your batters who can deliver a bit of spin or something. Just somebody that you can bring in to deliver at least a few overs in case like something's not working, or you feel like you need a change-up, or you feel like this particular bowler's set of skills might be suitable to the conditions that are happening right now or whatever. So minimum 5 bowlers, probably more than that. And then outside of that is how much can you stack your team full of batters to score the most runs possible, because at the end of the day, runs win matches. So it's a fine balancing thing.
And if you are watching a professional match, you're almost definitely watching a T20 match.
This is true in that most club professional clubs will be playing T20 cricket, and that'll be usually things in like the Indian Premier League. There's the Big Bash League in Australia. Um, I think the limited overs format in England that's big at the moment is called the 100 or something. I don't understand it. It's a bit different. Um, but yeah, there's a few kind of professional leagues around where you'll be playing T20 cricket, and that's where most of the money is. When a boundary happens, to the batsman also stop running? Yeah. So if something's if a boundary looks obvious, and usually you can tell as a batsman whether it's going to be a boundary or not, you won't bother run at all. You'll just stand there. Like if you know you've smacked it over the fence, you don't move.
Scorekeeping.
All right, pay attention because this is maybe the most confusing part of all of this, the scorekeeping. So at the bottom of the screen, you'll see it says India, and then it says 118 for 5. This does not mean that the score is 118 runs to 5 runs. No, this means that India has scored 118 runs for 5 wickets, which means that 5 of their batters have been put out. Then it says first innings.
And if the bowling team gets 10 wickets, your innings is over. Is the other important part of that to remember.
It's the first innings of this match. Then it says England 287. So that's how many runs England scored in their innings. And since this is a test match, both teams will play 2 innings. Then you've got information about the 2 batsmen that are currently up and how many runs they've scored so far. Then at the end, it says Broad 0 for 24. This means that Broad, the bowler, has taken 0 wickets so far and has allowed 24 runs. And then the 15 o'clock over there, that's just the time of the day. It's 3
It's just
p.m.
the time of the day.
Now, for a limited overs match, there's a little bit more information that you need to know. So here you go. Down at the bottom, it says England. This is another game between England and India. It's a women's game. So it says England 103 for 4. So that means that they've scored 103 runs for 4 wickets. P2, don't worry about what that means.
So he doesn't explain P2 here. I will explain P2 for you because I'm a stickler for the rules. In limited overs cricket, you have these things called power plays, which really are great names. Essentially what power plays are is a limitation on where the fielders can put their fielders. It basically says for a certain number of overs, the fielding team has to have a certain number of fielders inside the inner circle. So you'll see, if I come back over here, this would be called the inner circle or the inner oval. For a power play, the bowling team will have, I don't remember the exact numbers, and it differs for different kinds of power plays because there's 3 different types. I won't get into that. But essentially the gist is you need to have a certain number of fielders within this line when the bowler delivers the ball. And what that means is it just enables the batting team to be a little more aggressive and try to lift the ball over. Because if everybody's fielding close and then you just try to hit it over the top, the odds are you're not going to get caught out, right? So the power plays are designed to allow batters to get a little more aggressive and to make sure fielding teams don't just stick all of their fielders out on the boundary and mean that you can only score like 1 run a ball or something.
Yet. Then it says 24.3 of 50. That means that we are 24 overs and 3 deliveries into this innings. And then the 50 means that this innings will have at most 50 overs, right? Because this is a one-day international. Then it says target 222. This means that India went first and scored 222 runs.
Not quite true. India went first and scored 221 runs. The target is the target to win. So India scored 221. If England also scored 221, it would be a tie. If England scores 220 or less, England loses. If England scores 221 or more, or 222 or more, they win.
So that's how many runs England has to score to win. And from there, it's pretty much the same as the test match we just saw. Just be careful, because if you're watching an Australian broadcast, the scores are reversed. The wickets are first and the runs are second.
This isn't
so
that.
This one it says Ren.
This usually isn't much of an issue. Sometimes you'll see wickets first and then runs. Sometimes you'll see runs and wickets. really it's only within the first couple of overs that's a problem. As soon as you see a number over 10 down here, you know which one is the runs.
That's the Renegades. That's one of the teams. 5 for 135. So it's 5 wickets for 135 runs. So just be careful. It might be confusing.
Some final similarities and differences.
All right, that's basically it. I thought that we would end this video with a few more similarities and differences between baseball and cricket. One major difference is that in cricket, if a ball is in play, the runners are not compelled to move, right? You only run if you think you can make a run. One similarity is that every cricket ground has different dimensions and a different shape. And much like in baseball, this means that certain cricket grounds are more favorable or less favorable to different play styles. Another difference is that in cricket, the positions refer to places on the field and not necessarily...
It's our favorite fucking image. Even a little bit bigger.
The individual fielders. So if baseball had a similar thing, like you would not be the shortstop for your team. You would just be a fielder who would be playing shortstop position. And then if your team was in a shift or whatever, maybe you would be said that you were in the second base position. Or maybe for one batter, you would be in the shallow mid outfield position, right? Another similarity is that in cricket, players' on-field and off-the-field behavior is governed by an old-fashioned sense of propriety that's not unlike the unwritten rules in baseball. And the final...
That's that spirit of the game thing that I was talking about earlier, where if you are doing something that is completely legal but a bit of a dickhead move, you'll be considered to be breaching the spirit of the game, which doesn't mean that you've done necessarily... haven't done anything wrong by the letter of the law, but like you were a bit of a dickhead about it. So an example is somebody mentioned, do batsmen run into each other ever? There's a famous example of, I forget, I think it was England were fielding, and I forget who was batting, but the English bowler collided with one of the batsmen who was running. So the batsman fell over, the ball was thrown back, and they knocked the stumps off and got that batsman out. Generally, most teams, when that kind of thing happens, where the bowler and the batsman collide and it's like just pure accident, usually the fielding team does the sportsman-like thing and won't get that batter out because they recognize that they've been put in a situation that like there's nothing they could have done. Like the bowler just got in the way of them and made them fall over. But there was a famous example where England got a batter out after the batter had ran into the bowler, and everybody was like, it's just not really in the spirit of the game, is it?
Wow, we jaaski bobble.
Thank you, Crunchy Pickles, for the 15 months. I'll show you as well one of the most heinous incidents of that. It lives long in the memory of any New Zealand cricket fan, but it is maybe the most famous example of somebody doing something that was allowed under the rules of the game at the time, but everybody thought was one of the most criminal acts ever committed in cricket.
Difference that's probably become clear to you as you watch this video is that cricket is a much more international game than baseball. I don't mean to say that it is more popular in more countries than baseball, although this might also be true. What I mean by this is that international competitions, so competitions between national teams, are the norm. They're not like a special thing that everyone...
That's a really important point. The prestigious part of cricket is country versus country, not club versus club, which is different to a lot of sports. Like football, the pinnacle is club football. And same in most sports in the States, it's all about the franchise or the club or the team or whatever. In cricket, it is international competition that is the pinnacle.
Into every 4 years. Professional cricket is a relatively new phenomenon in the world, and while leagues are becoming much more popular these days, it wasn't very long ago that professional cricket was looked upon.
So when the score is shown on screen, does it show the score of the team that's winning, or does it alternate depending on who's batting? It is whoever's batting. So right now, Royal Challengers Bangalore are batting, and they are 71 for naught. So they have put on 71 runs without losing a wicket, but I think this umpire is about to give... who was batting, Chris Gale out maybe. And then if the other team had batted already, their score would be somewhere on this score sheet somewhere. This is Royal Challengers. Oh no, okay, here we go. Perfect. So, Kolkata Knight Riders are no longer batting. They're in the field, and they have set the target of 184. So they scored 183 in their innings. Royal Challengers Bangalore have to score 184 to win.
As diluting the purity of the game. All right, baseball fan, you have just become a cricket master, and you are ready to watch any cricket game that comes across your television. If you are a cricket
So, like, say in baseball, at any given moment, you can say whether a team is winning or losing, right? You can tell after the first innings, you have a general idea of whether a team is winning, a team is losing, or it's a draw. You can pretty much always say that, right? In cricket, because the innings are so long, it's really hard to say who's winning or who's losing at any given point. And you have a lot of statistics that will, like, determine whether or not a team is doing good or not based on their other performances and based on maybe the performance of the team that batted before them or whatever. So you'll have comparisons and stuff, but it can be really hard to tell at any given moment in a cricket match who is winning or losing. Sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes you definitely have somebody with an established lead. But a lot of the times the games are quite close and you can never really tell. I missed this part. How does the game end? If the team batting last scores more runs than the other team have scored, the game is over and the team batting last wins. If the team batting last is out without scoring more runs than the other team have scored, then the game is over. So if they lose all 10 wickets, then the game is over, and the bowling team would then win. In limited overs cricket, if the batting team batting second does not score enough runs to beat the other team before the limited overs are finished, so whether that's 50 or 20 overs, if you're too slow to score the runs, then the bowling team wins. In a test match, if a team is still batting at the end and not all of the wickets have been taken and the runs haven't been surpassed, then it's a draw. Nobody wins. So, sorry for the complicated answer to when does it end, but you know what I mean, right? You understand? Essentially, score more runs than the other team, you win. Score less runs than the other team, you lose. Except occasionally that becomes a draw in test match cricket. In baseball, you don't always play the bottom of the last innings. So yeah, and there will be occasions where a team will win by an innings. So you will do so good in a test match and score so many runs in one of your innings, and then you bowl the other team out twice. You will win by an innings and however many runs you're leading by. Which is like, if you lose by an innings, you've done very bad. You've had a very bad day. Or 5 days. But yeah, like you'll never finish batting through your whole innings if you score more runs than the other team. So if you've got more runs than the other team, then you don't like keep batting or anything. It'll just end. Can a game end before both innings are played? In limited overs cricket, no. Well, like, yes, you can end the game early by just scoring more runs than the other team. Or sometimes, yeah, the weather will cause problems. Like, you can't play cricket in rain. However, you will use a complicated system called the Duckworth-Lewis system to try and figure out who won the game if the game is shortened by rain. I am not going to even try to explain the Duckworth-Lewis system. Just know that complicated maths is done that determines how many runs you would have if you knew you were only going to be batting for this amount of overs, kind of deal. Hold on, hang on. Let me, Duckworth. I did type in Suckworth. Duckworth Lewis. Do we have... Okay, yeah, here we go. So here's the Wikipedia page for the Duckworth-Lewis system. As you'll see as I scroll down, we've got some interesting tables and stuff going on. There's a calculation summary of, you know, how scores are worked out and stuff. And then, you know, there's formulas and graphs and things that happen. And, yeah, that's the Duckworth-Lewis system. Nobody knows how that works. You put numbers into a machine, I assume, and it tells you the answer. I don't think there's a single human on Earth who can tell you, like, what Duckworth-Lewis does. I'm gonna show you. I mentioned I'm gonna show you the single biggest travesty in cricket that comes from a match between New Zealand and Australia. And it is, this is the epitome of not playing by the spirit of the game. By the way, New Zealand used to play in beige.
Ian Smith is out, bowled Trevor Chappell for 4. 8 down for 229.
How do we like these names? Richard Hadley, maybe the finest cricketer New Zealand has ever produced. Lance Cairns, great batsman. Martin Snedden, yep. Dennis Lilly, Greg Chappell, and I think Tony Chappell. Why is Chappell everywhere? So there's two Chappells. I think it's Greg Chappell and Tony Chappell, and they are brothers, and they play for Australia. Greg Chappell has taken 3 wickets. Tony Chappell has taken 2 wickets. And also caught 2 people out.
And New Zealand's only hope now is a 6 off the last.
So to set up the situation, there is 1 ball left to be bowled in this match. 1 single ball. For New Zealand to win, we have to score 6, which means it has to be hit over the boundary on the full without bouncing. So score a home run, basically. It's like final pitch, gotta score a home run to win the game.
For a tie.
Now, this is before a lot of the complicated rules on how you had to bowl were worked out. And what you're about to see is a completely legal delivery at the time.
Discussion. Well, it looks to me as if they're going to bowl underarm off the last ball.
But a truly horrendous piece of sportsmanship.
On the last ball and bowl it along the ground and be sure that it has not been hit for 6. The umpires have been told, the batsmen have been told, and this is possibly a little bit disappointing. Let's make sure it is an underarm, but I've got the feeling as an ex-Victorian skipper, they're going to bowl an underarm. We ever believed it?
Disgusting.
And that's a disappointing finish. Disappointing.
He rolled it on the ground so the batsman couldn't hit it for 6. It was just not possible to hit that ball for 6. Disgusting.
Well, that's disappointing.
And you can hear the crowd.
What's going on? The very disappointed.
That was legal at the time to bowl a ball like that, yes. It is now no longer legal to bowl a ball like that.
Now, one of the New Zealanders are disappointed, and none of them more disappointed than their skipper, Geoffrey Howe. There he is now, talking with the two umpires Cronin and Weezer, and I know exactly the reason he's out there. He's played his cricket over in the United Kingdom with Surrey for a number of years, and the Benson and Hedges domestic competition there...
Oh yeah, cricket was sponsored by cigarettes a lot back in the day. So, yeah, this is the frown thing. This is like the pinnacle of against the spirit of the game, cricket, and like truly an incident you don't want to repeat. And this is the kind of thing, like it's the kind of incident that you get where like rules are changed. So the rules were changed that you can no longer do that in cricket. You can't just bowl underarm. There's been other incidents as well. So there was a very famous series, Ashes series. Let me explain the Ashes, actually. So there's a series that happens every couple of years between Australia and England. Oh, I should get the bird off the screen. Where it's called the Ashes. It's a series of 5 test matches called the Ashes. The reason it's called the Ashes is way back in the day, in like the late 1800s, Australia beat England in a cricket series in England, and a sports writer wrote in the papers in the next day that cricket had died, and that the Ashes were being sent to Australia with the Australian cricket team. And they have the Ashes trophy. There is a very small tiny little baby trophy that is an urn. Can I get a picture of somebody holding it? Images. Yeah, this is good. Yep. This is a good one. This is a man kissing the Ashes. Just show me the image. It's a very little tiny trophy, and that's the printout of the write-up that was on the newspaper, written in the newspaper. And yeah, they do shit like this. It's very funny. The Ashes is a very funny series. Cricket should never be taken seriously. It's always okay to laugh at cricket. I say this as a cricket fan. I think in theory there's meant to be the ashes of like some actual bales. You know those things that sit on top of the stumps that we saw earlier? There's meant to be some actual ashes in there from the bales from the series back in the day. So anyway, there was a very famous Ashes series in the 1930s where Australia had this batsman called Don Bradman, who is arguably, like, not even arguably, just by far and away the greatest cricketer that's ever played the game. I can't overstate how much better he is than anybody else who's ever played. Like, the gulf between him and his peers is bigger than any other cricketer that's ever played. Don Bradman is a monster. So he finished his career with an average of, let me double check. It was an average of, I think, 99.61 or something. Which means every time he went out, on average, he would score, that was 99.94. On average, he would score 99 runs. Nearly 100 runs every time he went out there. To give you an idea of context for that, you would be considered a very good batsman if your average was 40. Don Bradman averaged nearly 100. It's ridiculous how good he was. So anyway, England were playing against Australia, and they just didn't know how to deal with Don Bradman. They were like, there's this freak of cricket that we have to play against who is just going to beat us every time. How are we going to beat him? And they went, what if we tried to kill them? And they came up with this theory of bowling called bodyline, which was, we're not going to bounce the ball. We're not going to try to bowl in any kind of way to get them out. We are going to throw the ball as hard as we can at them, at their body, on the full, always. Just at them, as fast as you can. And this was legal at the time. And yeah, there were serious injuries suffered by Australia. One batsman got hit in the head and had to be like taken to hospital and shit, and still came back to see out his innings. He came back bandaged up and went out to bat. Heroic shit. But yes, the Bodyline series is infamous and introduced a major rule change that basically said you could no longer target the body like that. Cricket innings is for, yeah, it's inning in baseball, right? It's always an innings in cricket. So yeah, you often have events like that in cricket, like the underarm ball, where rules get changed in order to, you know, get rid of what seems like pretty unsportsmanlike behavior. And cricket rules still change a little bit here and there, but it's pretty rare these days. Most of the change that happens these days is like format related stuff. Power plays is probably the most significant rule change that was introduced recently. New Zealand tried to do something for a while called Cricket Max. Which was where, hold on, let me bring up the classic again. There were zones. Oop, I grabbed the wrong thing. Hold on, don't know what that was that I grabbed. There are zones. Wait, what was it? Oh, it was my. You need to come down here. Okay, hold on. I'm moving scenes around in OBS that you can't see. Zones here and here that were called the max zones. Where if you hit the ball into those zones, whatever runs you scored would be doubled. Which was a very fun concept. But yeah, power plays is probably the biggest thing, at least in my recent memory, that have changed. Restricting exactly, because it used to be the way that limited overs used to work was it was just the field was restricted for the first 15 overs. So you had to have a certain number of fielders inside the inner circle for the first 15 overs. Now there is an enforced power play at the start, which is 10 overs. Then the fielders can choose to take a power play whenever they want, and the batters can choose to take a power play whenever they want. And those are both 5 overs long. And they generally have slightly looser rules than the first power play. Usually, the fielding team will take their second power play straight away, unless things are getting out of hand. But more often than not, you just take it to get it out of the way. And the batting power play will often be saved until the very end of the match. Which is basically when, like, if you as a batting team have done good and, like, saved enough wickets, once you get to the last, like, 10 overs or so, you can start going, cool, time for us to go crazy and just hit the ball silly hard for 10 overs or something. Because you got a few wickets in hand, it doesn't really matter if you get all out, you just want to score a few more runs. So you'll generally put the batting power play then. No, I don't think Japan would get into cricket. They've already got baseball. The thing is, if you've got baseball, you got no reason to get into cricket. Do bats break often, and when they do you get a new one, or are you out something weird? They don't break often, but they can break. And you're not out if your cricket bat breaks or anything. Like, not just from the cricket bat breaking itself or whatever. But there was a famous cricket bat break. Women's? Somebody posted in my Discord a while back. Oh, was it Grace Harris broken bat? Is it this? Oh no, this is some. Okay, hold on. Is it this? I think I have a YouTube Shorts version of it, which I can turn into a video by going V. And now I can go here. So you can hear her say at the beginning there, "I need a new bat." They asked, "Do you need it now?" She says, "Nah, it's alright." So she knows it's broken. Stuff it, I'll still hit it.
I love that.
Behavior.
Stuff it or still hit it. I love that.
Watch this.
She's box office. There's no doubt about that. There it is. She knew. And she's still in it for 6. It is extraordinary stuff.
Her bat broken too, and she still hit it over the fence.
She says, nah, stuff it. I've got a broken handle. I'll still hit it. And it's gone for 6. That is priceless.
Amazing shit. Huge fan of that. Ah, stuff it. I'll still hit it. Anyway, now you know cricket, chat. I think that guy, the cricket baseball guy, had a follow-up video. That I want to try and find, which I think goes into a bit more detail on a few things. I can't find it. Oh, it might have been this one. Baseball and cricket, more similarities and differences. Yeah, I think it's this one. I think it's this one. Hold on. You get a little more cricket action.
And differences between baseball and cricket.
Hey, this video is a follow-up to my video, Cricket Explained for Baseball Fans. If you haven't watched that one, you might want to do that first. For the final section of that video, I described some broad similarities and differences between cricket and baseball. Several people shared more similarities and differences in the comment section of that video, so I figured it would be a good idea to make a quick companion video highlighting some additional ones. One difference, and this is pretty obvious, but it bears a mention, is that in cricket, the fielders catch the ball with their bare hands, while baseball players use gloves. It should be noted that the cricket ball is actually heavier and harder than a baseball, so that's just something to know. While we're here, let's talk about the balls. Although they look different, cricket balls and baseballs are actually pretty similar. They're both made of cork
They're
and
very
string
similar, actually,
covered
yeah.
in leather and are stitched
I
together.
have not
along
watched Raffles.
standard
I don't know what
seams.
Raffles is.
Cricket balls have a single seam that goes around the equator of the ball, as opposed to the horseshoe-shaped seam of a baseball. The main difference is that cricket balls are heavier and slightly smaller than baseballs and are considerably harder because they're covered in lacquer. A major difference is that in cricket, each ball is used for a much longer amount of time than in baseball. How long each ball is used depends on the format of cricket and a few other factors, but it's significantly longer than in baseball, where a new ball is provided anytime the pitcher wants one, anytime the umpire determines that a ball has become dirty,
Yeah.
or anytime the ball goes into the seats.
In test
Over
match
100
cricket,
balls might be used in a single Major League Baseball game.
you have to use
whereas
the
as
same
few as
ball for
4 or
80
even
overs.
just 2 balls might be used across a cricket match, depending on the format and details. Unlike baseball,
So 80 overs is what? What's 5 times 8? 40, 400 deliveries? 400 deliveries. Is that right? Yes. No. How does maths work? Yeah, 400 deliveries. No, 6. Not 8 times 5. 8 times 6. 480 deliveries. No. How does maths work? Either way, it's a lot of balls that you have to bowl the same ball. And like, I think he goes
where fans can
into...
keep the balls that they catch. If the cricket ball is hit into the stands, it is returned to play. And if
Yeah.
it becomes lost or damaged, the umpire selects a new ball from a collection of game-worn balls and will choose the ball that is the most similarly worn to the one that was in play. One similarity
Yeah,
is that
so
both
I don't... Does he have a picture of it anywhere? The umpires have a little briefcase full of balls that are all of different amounts of wear. And if for any reason a ball has to be replaced, the umpires will pull out their little briefcase of balls and have a look at all of them and decide which one is the most similar to the ball so that you can replace it.
games have a bit of a ritual break built into them, well, at least at the highest levels. Professional baseball has its 7th inning stretch, whereas one-day international cricket and test cricket have tea and lunch or dinner breaks. The difference is that baseball's 7th inning stretch always happens halfway through the 7th inning, while the tea and dinner or lunch breaks in cricket happen at set times during the playing day, regardless of where they are in the match. Also, the breaks in these cricket matches are considerably longer than the 7th inning stretch, which only lasts a few minutes. YouTube user SynthMusicFan501 brought up a bunch of similarities and differences, and they have created a series of videos about cricket that explain the game in more detail for anybody
Thank you,
interested.
SynthMusicFan501.
One difference that was new to me is that in cricket, there are no double plays. Only one runner or batter can be put out in a single play. YouTube user Era Persigan2 brought up a similar difference, which is in cricket, there's no need to tag up like on a fly ball that might be caught. If the ball is caught, as long as you made it past the other crease, you're safe. The run won't count, but this is something that you might want to do to affect the striking position for the next ball.
Yeah. So that's a small little tactical thing that you can do in cricket is if the ball is hit up in the air, the batsman can run, and if they have what's called, if the batsmen have crossed, as in run past each other, literally in the pitch, and then the ball is caught, whoever was the non-striker will then face the next ball because they've crossed. So the run doesn't count, but the non-striker will then be the one to face the next delivery instead of the new batsman who hasn't faced a single ball yet. And so you will often use the idea of the batsman crossing tactically, where, say, if you have a batsman that's been in for a while and is quite established, and you're down to your last few wickets, so the batsmen that are coming in are not very good, you might cross intentionally when a ball is hit skyward to make sure that the next ball that gets faced is faced by the more experienced and better batsman. So there's very little tactical things with that. but it doesn't
brought
come up that
by
often.
YouTube user Sam Moffat is that a lot of the decisions that in baseball would be made by the manager in cricket are made by the on-field captain, so someone who's actually playing the game. It's been a long time since
Yes.
Major League Baseball has seen a player manager, and it's pretty rare for on-field players to have the level of influence over this.
So the captain doesn't have any influence over selection generally. They will probably have some level of influence, but at the end of the day, the selection of the team comes down to the coach. But all on-field decisions are made by the captain. The captain of the team will decide what the field looks like, who's bowling, who's going to bowl next. They'll tell people to go warm up if they want them to bowl soon. They'll make small adjustments to the field if they want a fielder to come a little bit closer or a little bit further back or whatever. As well as the captain has the option to choose to declare, which is only used in test match cricket. But basically, if you've done really good and you think you've scored enough runs, you as the captain can say, we're done now. We don't want to play anymore. We declare our innings over. It's your turn. So if you feel like you've done so good and your run total is so high, like if you scored like 600 or something runs, then it's probably likely that you're going to declare pretty soon because you need to give yourself time. Like I said earlier, if you want to win a test match, you have to bowl the other team out twice. So you got to leave that room for you to be able to do that, basically.
Decision making that a manager has, although it does happen sometimes. A similarity between the two games is that bowlers and pitchers deliver the ball at different speeds and with different types of spin, and each type of delivery has its own name. For example, in baseball we have the changeup, and in cricket there is the slower ball. One difference that I've noticed, and I would love for a cricket person to maybe explain this a little bit better in the comments, is that cricket bowlers tend to be identified or like classified based.
Truly an absurd delivery. That's not that. There's a so-called ball of the century that Shane Warne delivers, but this ball here is like
cricket ball
insane. Look at the trajectory of this ball. So he's thrown it from like here. So it's arcing like this. For some reason, my mouse is showing on the screen this time. It's arcing like this, right?
Bowlers tend to be.
It just bounced there and clipped back to hit the stumps.
Identified or like
truly an
absurd
absurd ball
on the type of bowling that they do. There are two broad categories. You have fast bowlers.
It went between his legs to bowl him.
Bowlers, and within those categories you have bowlers who are identified with like one like sub-style of bowling. In baseball, it's not uncommon for a pitcher to have like a signature pitch or a signature sequence of pitches, but these are generally seen as just one part of a wider pitching arsenal. It's rare for a baseball pitcher to be identified primarily by the type of pitch that they throw. Knuckleballers are the one exception I can think of right now. Like R.A. Dickey, you would call him a knuckleballer before you'd call him anything else. Instead,
so I think
in baseball, it's much more common to identify or classify a pitcher by the role they play on the team. Starter, closer, setup man, long reliever, etc. I mean, even someone like Mariano Rivera, who was known for basically throwing only one style of pitch, you wouldn't call him a cutter ball pitcher before you called him the closer for the New York Yankees. Another similarity.
So I think the difference is in baseball, there isn't as dramatic a difference between the types of deliveries as there is in cricket. Like in baseball, at the end of the day, everybody's going to be trying to throw the baseball at like somewhere between like, I don't know how fast you throw it, somewhere between like 70 and 90 miles an hour or something like that. And like, you're standing still, you're winding up, you're throwing, like closer to 80 to 100. Like, for the most part, I feel like the action as a pitcher is very similar. Whereas in cricket, what you have is two very distinct types of bowlers, and those are pace bowlers, who are going to be delivering the ball between 130 and 160 kilometers an hour at the very upper end, and spin bowlers who are bowling at like 90 kilometers an hour. So significantly slower, but their purpose is to get grip off the pitch and to turn it, like you saw with that like insane ball.
Is that cricket bowlers?
This is a spin bowler, so his purpose is to bowl slower but get traction off the pitch and turn it. Whereas a pace bowler is not looking to get so much movement out of the pitch. They still will get a bit of movement, but nowhere near as much as this. And you also, with a pace bowler, get a lot more movement in the air. It's called swing bowling, so it'll swing one way or the other in the air. One thing you'll see cricketers do a lot is they'll take the ball and they'll rub it on their pants. What they're doing is they're trying to create a shiny side and a rough side. So you will lick your fingers, rub the ball a little bit, and then rub it on your pants. And you're trying to shine that side or keep it as shiny as possible, while the other side you're kind of ignoring. You're not allowed to like fuck with a ball. A lot of people have been caught out like scratching a ball or even using sandpaper on a ball to try and rough it up and create one of the rougher sides. That's against the rules. So you're not allowed to like rough up a ball intentionally, but the idea is you're going to keep one side as shiny as possible so that you can generate like an air imbalance and get some swing bowling out of it.
Identified or like classified based on.
And generally that's the classification is, are you a pace bowler or are you a spin bowler? And then to drill down on that, if you're a pace bowler, do you bowl mainly swing or do you bowl mainly seam? Swing being movement in the air, seam being movement off the pitch. And then if you're a spin bowler, do you bowl off spin or leg spin? And that basically is just your default ball, which direction does it spin?
Type of bowling that they do. There are two broad categories.
How beat up? Very beat up.
Fast bowlers and spin bowlers. And within those categories, just one I can think of right now. Like,
see, I don't know. I think it's kind of
knuckleballer before you.
And like you will have, like you have a closer in baseball. There are bowlers that you will go to at what's called at the death. You will have bowlers that you will tend to use at the death, which is the last few innings or last few overs of an innings, where it's like, okay, we need you to get in there and shut them down and let them to make them score as few runs as possible. And you're like, a bowler might have a particular subset of skills that makes them very difficult to score off or whatever. So like you do get some, like there's opening bowlers and they will almost always be fast bowlers. There's bowlers at the death who again will almost always be fast bowlers. So I don't know. I think there's some similarities there.
Instead, in baseball, it's much more common to identify or classify a pitcher.
But most of the time, you're defined by what ball, what hand
Starter,
you bowl with,
closer,
and whether you're a
man,
fast or spin
long
bowler,
reliever, etc. I mean, even someone like Mariano Rivera, who was known for basically throwing only one style of pitch, you wouldn't call him a cutter ball pitcher before you called him the closer for the New York Yankees.
There are medium pace bowlers who will bowl somewhere between a spin and pace bowler, but generally you don't see a lot of those anymore. It's a bit of a relic of years gone by, is having a medium pace bowler.
Another similarity between the two games is that baseball and limited overs cricket deal with ties basically the same way. In baseball, if the game is tied after the 9th inning, they go on to extra innings, which is where additional innings are played until one team has scored more runs than the other team at the end of the inning. And in limited overs cricket, if the game is tied after the overs limit has been reached after the 2nd innings, they play what are called super overs, which is where each team bats for 1 over, and they keep doing this until the super over ends with one team having more runs than the other team, just like in extra innings. And a thank you goes out to YouTube user Sankara Narayanan C for pointing this out.
Yeah, super overs are fun and controversial, and not everybody likes them. But yeah, you'll have 1 over to bat to score some runs, and then the other team will need to try and beat you in 1 over. And again, if the scores are tied, you go to another super over. It's they're very controversial, and not everybody likes seeing them.
Finally, in baseball, if weather causes the game to be shut down for the day,
Here we go.
the game is either declared final as it is, or the game is suspended and basically unpaused at a later date, depending on how much the game has been completed. This can lead to some interesting situations, including at least one case where a player appeared for both teams in the same game after being dropped by one team and then picked up by the other team in between the suspension of the game and its restarting a few months later. In limited overs cricket, if weather causes the game to be shut down and it's still the first innings, the match is just considered a draw. They don't restart the match at another date. If this happens during the second innings and the batting team has had the opportunity to bat at least 20 overs if it's an ODI cricket match, or 5 overs if it's a T20 match, one team is declared the winner, but it's not necessarily the team with the most runs. They use something called the Duckworth-Lewis method to determine the winner. And this is way too complicated for me to talk about here, so there's a link in the description if you want more information about this. Before we end this video, I just wanted to weigh in on a debate that's...
I will say in test match cricket, if it rains, it's over. Many test matches are decided by rain, where after a couple days it'll start raining and then it will just keep raining for a few days and then you don't play any more cricket and it's a draw.
Seems to have come up in the comment section of that video just in the last week or so. And the debate is about which of these games is more complicated. And I want to preface what I'm about to say by saying, like, I'm a lifelong baseball fan. I played Little League as a kid. I play weekly pickup games in the park.
I don't know the answer to the question, is cricket or baseball more complicated? I don't know everything there is to know about baseball. I do know there are some very complex rules that I still don't really understand. And I think maybe just like those kind of situations about like what happens on, like, there's that situation where like there's a strike but it's not actually a strike and you can like run if you are quick enough, or like there's some very weird specific things that come up in baseball that confuse the fuck out of me.
I run a fantasy baseball league. I watch like at least one baseball game a day during baseball season. And I'm pretty new to cricket. I only really got into cricket maybe 5 or 6 years ago. And it was a conscious thing. I decided I wanted to get into it. It seemed interesting. So I started watching some matches and basically had to figure the game out myself. With all this being said, I can confidently say that if you are starting from a place where you know nothing about either sport, cricket is by far the easier game to understand. My oldest kid is 3 years old, and most of...
I think it depends on what you mean by understand, right? Like, I think it depends what you mean, like by baseline. Like, what is an understanding of baseball versus an understanding of cricket, right? I don't know. Depends where your line is drawn. I think that they're as easy as each other if it's just like learning the basics.
For Cousins and the kids that she plays
Don't know what
with
fantasy style sports
are.
It depends on like every fantasy, like the fantasy leagues for different sports will have like different rules and stuff. The most common one is you draft a team within a budget that like your team is made up of different players within the league, and you get like points based on how those players perform on that weekend, or that game day or whatever. And then the rules will kind of be a little different. Sometimes you'll be facing off against another person's team, and it's whoever scores more points wins that game or whatever. So you have your own mini league or whatever. Sometimes it's just pure how many points you've accumulated throughout the season will determine where you are on your league table or whatever the fuck. There's a couple different ways it gets run, but it's essentially like usually you create a team made up of various players within the league within some kind of confine of either a budget or a draft system. And you compete online against people. Is the gist of fantasy sports. Trying to think, would it be easier to tell people how to play backyard cricket or backyard baseball? See here, I think the same. I think the explanation would be exactly the same. If you were trying to explain somebody a game of backyard cricket or a game of backyard baseball, I think it would require just as much learning to understand either of them. No? That's how I feel.
Or at most kindergarten age. And we've tried playing games like t-ball and kickball using baseball rules. And we've also played a game that's basically cricket, but, modified for a 3 or 4-year-old. And just at this basic gameplay level, I find that cricket is just so much easier to describe to a 3 to 5-year-old, which makes me think that it's probably the simpler game to understand if you're coming at it from a position of not knowing either sport. I mean, in cricket, you can hit the ball in any direction. There's no foul area, so you don't have to explain that. There's only the 2 wickets. There's not the 4 bases. So you just tell the kid, try to hit the ball, and if you think you can make it to the other...
Okay. Would I be wrong in assuming if you were playing like a game of backyard baseball or t-ball or whatever, how, aggressive would you be in calling things like foul balls? Like how strict or how much does a foul ball matter in like the backyard context for kids? If they're 4-year-olds, not at all. Yeah, see, I would figure it. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it just seems like the kind of thing where I don't know. I'm not a stickler for the rules when it comes to cricket with kids, right? If a kid stands halfway down the pitch and throws the ball or whatever, it's who cares? It's a kid, right? Or if a kid bowls with a bent arm, which is a thing you can't do in cricket, nobody's gonna fucking call kids out on rules and stuff. So I don't know. I feel like I disagree. I don't know. I just feel like the fundamental of hit ball forward is just, that's all you need to explain, right? In a backyard context, playing with family or whatever.
Wicket, run. If you don't think you can make it, stay put. That's honestly a lot easier than, okay, so you hit the ball, run to first base. You have to run to first base, but don't run to second unless you think you can make it, unless you're compelled to run to second because you started on first base.
Okay. Come on. Okay. Here's what I disagree with this dude. This dude is describing a situation where he's holding his kid to a way more extreme scenario when playing baseball than when playing cricket. 'Cause you don't have to explain all that shit. They just hit the ball and they run to the base and then you go, "Hooray!" And if they keep running, then you pretend that you can't catch them or throw the ball to second base and you let them get second base. Who cares? Why? I don't know, man.
Now the ball is in.
I don't know if I agree with you.
It's a lot more complicated. There's no tagging up in cricket, so you don't have to teach the kids about, okay, so if they catch the ball, you actually have to tag up on the base that you were at. And then if you think you can make it, you can run. But a lot of the time you don't want to run unless there's 2 outs and 2 strikes, in which case you do want to run. That's a lot more information than just, if you think you can make it, try to run to the other one.
Okay, but again, you're talking about super complicated technical shit, which is the same shit that you will have in cricket and choices that you make. Again, like I described, where batsmen will cross when there's when you're getting caught out, there's a decision to make whether you want your batsman to cross or not. And there's going to be a determination most of the time you will want them to cross because you want the batter that's a little more, at least had a little more time at the crease to face more balls facing the next ball, because you don't want to have 2 wickets fall in a row. It's that kind of complex shit that I think he's talking about, You just fucking don't try to get complex with them and let them play the game, I don't know.
Now, this is not to say that cricket does not have its complexities, right? Both games have their own intricacies. And
Yeah, like, I'm not going to call a kid LBW in a backyard cricket game.
What
And
would
they're
be
not.
easier to teach a dog? Cricket or baseball?
Thank you for the 46 months. What would be easier to teach a dog? At least cricket, it's just run back and forth.
complexities and the little details and the fine print that make them, not the easiest games in the world to explain. But even
Yeah, but the thing is, you've applied this thing of fine details to baseball, but not to cricket. I don't understand. I'm very confused here.
then, I find that cricket's rules follow an internal logic at least a bit more closely than baseball. A great example of baseball not necessarily following its own internal logic is the dropped third strike, which is something that's been brought up in comments.
This was the thing I was talking about, right?
For those of you who don't know, in baseball, if a batter swings at a pitch and misses, it's a strike. It's a strike if the ball comes in cleanly. It's a strike if the ball hits the dirt first, which happens a lot like on splitters or like with back foot sliders or something like that. Even if the catcher is unable to cleanly get possession of the ball, it's still a strike. However, the batter is only out after the third strike if the catcher catches the ball in the air. So if the ball bounces first or if the catcher cannot cleanly handle the ball and the batter swings, it's still a strike. It still counts as a strikeout for the pitcher and for the batter, but the batter's not actually out. The batter is actually a...
What? Sorry, what? It still counts as a strikeout for the pitcher and for the batter, but the batter isn't out. Go fuck yourself, baseball.
Runner as if the ball had been put in play. That makes sense if you know that the putout only happens when the catcher catches the ball. But that's not something
statistics reasons? Yeah, well, fucking in cricket, you only get a wicket if you actually get someone out. You don't get to count that as a wicket if you're like, well, he should have been out, but I bowled a no ball. Fuck you.
Automatically, especially knowing that a batter can't just run to first base on a wild pitch or a passed ball otherwise. But even then, this does not apply to every single dropped third strike situation. It only applies if first base is unoccupied or if there are two outs. You really wouldn't be able to intuit that rule.
Wait, it only applies if first base is occupied or if there are two outs. Go fuck yourself, baseball. I would never remember this if I was playing baseball. Or unoccupied, sorry.
Based on the other rules of baseball that you know. I find there's less of that in cricket. Anyway, if you're a person who knows both sports, feel free to disagree with me in the comments, but that's just something
I don't know, man. Like, you didn't even talk about, like, how somebody gets out LBW. Like, I don't know. I feel like he's pick and chosen there. Like, if I have to sit here and explain the rules of leg before wicket to y'all, it would be, like, 10 minutes, probably. I already half explained it, and I still didn't go into the full details.
On maybe at least for
but
some
again,
of us,
those are the kind of rules that like, does anybody really care about the ground strike, dropped ground strike ball run to first base when you're playing a game of backyard cricket or backyard baseball, I should say? Of course they don't care when you're playing backyard cricket.
Or overwhelming is because there are just enough similarities to baseball that we kind of get into a baseball mindset when we watch the game. And this makes the differences between baseball and cricket seem especially weird or even chaotic, right? Like, imagine two batters just running back and forth between home plate and the pitcher's mound. That would be absolute chaos. But again, if you're starting at a place where you know neither game, I think cricket is the easier game to describe to you and for you to understand, and I don't think it's close. All right, that's it for now. If you'd like more similarities and differences,
hold on.
And I don't think it's close. I think cricket is the easier game to describe to you and for you to understand, and I don't think it's close. All right.
You don't think it's close, even? Not only does he think cricket is the easier to explain, he doesn't think it's close. I don't know. I think it's close. I think they're both very odd sports and have a lot of odd rules. But don't think it's close. That's crazy. That's crazy to me, bro. There are so many intricacies of cricket that never went into in that video or either of these videos that like are kind of fundamental to understanding how to play it at the highest level or even watch it at the highest level. But like that shit doesn't matter when you're just explaining the basics, right? I think he's saying it's not close if you explain both of them 100% fully. Yeah, I don't agree. I think it is. I think they're both silly little sports with silly little rules. I think it is close. I disagree with him. Now, again, I don't know the full ins and outs of baseball. But I know enough. I've played Super Mega Baseball. But like even just the different formats of cricket and the different rules that apply to the different formats of cricket, all of which are played at the highest level and all of which you will need to know and understand if you want to watch cricket. I don't disagree that I think you can explain the fundamentals of cricket. My thing has always been, I think you can understand cricket like 80-90% of the way there within like 5 minutes. Like it's not a difficult sport to understand, like the fundamentals of it. And we're talking the pure fundamentals. And I think baseball is probably the same. The pure basic fundamentals of it you can explain pretty quickly and get an understanding of it and know what the objective of every team is and know whether a team is doing good or bad, etc., etc. Like you can get the pure basics pretty easily on both of them, and I think that's true of like almost any sport. But my man scrolled the Wikipedia page for the Duckworth-Lewis method and said, I don't think it's close. I think baseball is way more complicated to explain. The fact, like the very fact that there's a system in cricket that will decide a winner of the game that nobody understands. Nobody knows how it works, but everybody goes, yep, that's cool. That looks normal and right to me. I agree with the Duckworth-Lewis method. Aussie Rules is the most nonsense sport? Nah, Aussie Rules is fucking great. That shit's so good. I'll be honest. Anybody who... So funnily enough, I heard a statistic last night at poker that apparently 50%, like... a lot of the, maybe 50%, maybe up to 50% of the fan base of Aussie Rules is women, and there's a reason. Don't you DMCA me?
Other game in the world.
Buddy Franklin under the scene. Franklin, this is Buddy Franklin.
Otherwise known as Aussie Rules, AFL or footy, Australian football is chock-a-block full of non-stop action, athleticism, hard hits, and stopping moments.
Seed from the boundary needs to be in perfect ears.
This is Australia's
Um, it's great. I love Aussie Rules.
The Professional Men's League, the AFL, is the most attended domestic sports league in the world per capita. It's made up of 18 teams across the country.
The AFLW is the women's competition, formed in 2017 and growing rapidly ever since.
Righto, let's talk some basics. On game day, two teams play each other on a field shaped like an oval. A starting lineup consists of defenders, midfielders, and forwards.
You gotta be fit to play this sport. Players can move anywhere on the ground and perform any role during the game. Games are split into 4 quarters, with time added for stoppages in play. And the game starts with players from both teams fighting for possession of the ball.
We are away, and Grundy out the back was able to get it to Pendlebury.
Sorry, he did just say the words Grundy out the back. And that's yeah, okay.
The aim is to move the ball down the field and score. This is done in one of 3 ways. You can't throw the ball, but you can use your fist to punch the ball out of your hands. That's a handball. You can run with the ball, but don't forget to bounce it every 15 metres.
Penny! Oh, he's in a good spot. Penny with a bounce. Here's the moment. Penny with a second bounce.
Penny with a second
And
bounce.
finally, you can kick the ball. No. Yeah, that's better.
Trelaw kicks it beautifully. Look at that ball.
Players try to catch the ball after it's been kicked at least 15 metres. This is called a mark. Fun fact, you can use your opponent as a stepladder and take what's called a specky. Wait, that's legal? After a mark, you can choose to play on. Or you can stop and take an unobstructed kick.
It's very similar to
To
Gaelic
score,
football, yeah.
The idea is to kick the ball between the 2 large upright posts.
There's the target. And that's right on.
That's a goal. That's 6 points.
By the way, you can also kick goals like this, or even this. No way!
No way!
Hit the post, or put it between the big posts and the outer lower post. How did he miss that? That's worth 1 point. We call that a behind. After a goal is scored, the ball
They call
goes
it a
back to the
behind,
centre
by the way.
square, and the action starts again.
Streaming through. Bang! Bang, bang, bang!
So, how do you get the ball back from your opponents? You can spoil, bump, smother, and tackle.
Yep.
Is it true they don't wear
Normal
pads?
words.
And bang!
Once tackled, your opponent must correctly dispose of the ball. Yeah, nah, not like that. If they don't, and have had prior opportunity to do so,
On the footy!
this is called holding the ball, and you get a free kick. When the final siren sounds, the team with the most points wins. Come on!
What an upset!
A final scoreline can look confusing, but it's actually
It
pretty
is very
simple.
Forza
Start with
Horizon.
the goals. These are worth 6, remember? Add your behinds, and that's your total score.
Before we go, let's take a quick look at how the professional seasons work.
Okay.
In the women's competition, the top teams play off in a knockout final series, culminating in a grand final played at the highest ranking team's home ground.
In the men's league, teams fight it out for 22 home and away games. And after that, the top 8 teams make the finals. One by one, teams get knocked out until 2 remain, ready to face off in the grand final. It's the decider for the biggest prize in footy, the Premiership Cup.
The
Played at
biggest
the
prize in
MCG
footy.
In front of, hold up, this can't be right, 100,000 fans. You beauty.
What a game of footy!
And that's pretty much it. Your quick guide to Aussie rules football.
There you go.
So this is
Now we all
us.
know Aussie rules
What do you
football.
reckon? Because personally, we think it's the best live game going round.
But don't take our word.
I won't take your word for it. They will be wearing, I would imagine, professional Aussie rules players will be wearing mouth guards. And that's it. I imagine some of them might occasionally wear headgear, maybe injury related, but I've now got a video on my recommended titled The Laws of Cricket Explained by Stephen Fry, which I'm not sure I need to hear. Cups? No, I don't think they would be in Aussie rules. There's conversations to be had around like concussions and stuff in both rugby league, and Aussie rules, but in general, most of those sports will have rules set up with how you can tackle to minimize that risk. But I do not think they're getting hurt more than the average American football player. Put it that way. It's my favorite shit, Dave. Where it's just like a video of somebody standing in court being like, are you talking to the person or the entity? I am not entering in a contract with you. And my person is, but I am not. A hip drop? Yeah. Yeah, there's very strong rules about how you can tackle in rugby for exactly those reasons, just because of like causing serious injury or death. Basically, you can't be doing wrestling moves out on the rugby field. Oh, my back is so sore, chat. I'm gonna explode, I think. Anyway, the summary of all that is I do think that baseball and cricket are the same sport. I say this as a cricket fan. I love cricket. I got a solution for your back. Don't be in your 30s. When you're right, you're right. The wickets are still insane to me. Like the actual, the physical wickets. It's just it's just like a physical strike zone. The balls? The bails are the two little bits that sit on top of the wickets. Or on top of the stumps. And then the stumps are the sticks that are in the ground. The 3 sticks that are in the ground. Combined, they make the wicket. I don't know, it's exciting. It's cool when you see the stumps fall over. Is there a middle stump? broken. Should we watch 12 unbelievable cricket deliveries? It probably has DMCA music, so I have to mute it. Yeah, look at that. Look at that wicket fly away. Love it. Woo! He got his stump smashed, mate. This is Brett Lee, one of the fastest bowlers on record. He's up there. Yeah, Fizzy. Yeah. That's Glenn McGrath, one of the highest wicket takers of all time. I think third highest wicket taker. I can't tell who's bowling here. Oh, it's that's Freddie Flintoff. I don't have a fun fact about Freddie Flintoff. Other than his name is Andrew, actually, but people call him Freddie. I don't recognize him. That might be Jason Gillespie. I'm not sure. The one thing is when they bowl and hit the stumps, the batter is just in the way of the shot. Uh-huh. Oh, the camera. I see what you mean. Yeah. That's gonna happen. Did he chop that on? The RGB stumps. See, I'm a hater of the RGB stumps. There was an example in a recent test between West Indies and Australia where Kamar Roach hit the bail and it just rotated in place because it's 3 times as heavy as a normal wooden stump and also made of plastic. So it didn't actually break the wicket, it just rotated in place, and the guy wasn't out. Yeah, that's the basics of it, Chad. More often than not, when a bowler is bowling, you're not actually intending to hit the wickets. A lot of strategy in bowling is encouraging the batsman to play a shot and trying to use movement in the air or off the pitch that is going to make them fuck up that shot somehow. But sometimes you want to just bowl them out, and that's pretty cool. Look at that stump fly. There's also little cameras inside the stumps. None of those wickets broken. I'm disappointed. The baseball equivalent of a knuckleball. We went over a lot of this earlier. I don't actually know what a knuckleball is. Compared to like a formal, like a fastball. But like, a knuckleball is thrown slowly with a weird grip that it doesn't spin. Yeah, that'd be a slower ball. That'd be a slow ball. You would bowl cross seam and slower, and it is harder to read. I do want to show you guys there's a very good thumbnail on my screen right now from the recommendeds. Actually, I would argue there's two very good thumbnails on my screen right now from the recommendeds. The bottom left and the bottom right are really good. Thanks, YouTube. Let me show you the bowl of the century. By Shane Warne. That music is funny.
Shane Keith Warne would finish his career with a record 708 test wickets. Yet he came to be defined by his very first delivery on English soil in 1993.
Oh, how's the quality here? Not very good, huh?
As the ball of the century.
360p? It might be better in slow-mo. I hope they show it in slow-mo.
I didn't really get a good look at it and didn't really have a...
Yeah, that's buck wild. So... Playback speed. Oh, that's subtitles. Playback speed. Go to 0.25. So he, ignore the sound. He throws the ball and it bounces there. So it has bounced about here on the pitch. Down here. It is going to turn and go all the way that way and hit the top of this stump. Which is crazy. Hence why it's called the ball of the century.
Initial appreciation how good it was until...
Is he hitting a tiny pebble to make it bounce? No, he's turning it with his fingers and wrist. Spinning the ball so fast that it gets so much grip when it impacts the pitch that it turns that much.
Out in the ground, won his first ball, you beauty, you know, one for none. Thanks for coming.
This is also influenced by age, so how much spin you get is going to be generated by age of the ball. If the ball is roughed up and a bit scuffed, it will generally generate a bit more turn. Same as the pitch. If the pitch itself is a bit roughed up and a bit scuffed, you'll get more purchase and more turn.
Then the boys started to talk, you know, particularly in Healy behind him.
This is Zinc, by the way. You described him as coked up. Now, incidentally, Shane Warne was in fact incredibly coked up later in his life, but in this case, no, this isn't coke. This is zinc. This is sun protection. No, Shane Warne was maybe the biggest cricket superstar ever.
To bring gap towards it just enough. His front foot didn't move out just enough.
Yeah, there's the stump cam.
Just a bit slow. It spun just enough to hit just the top of the off stump.
He was... You could make an argument for Shane Warne being the greatest cricketer of all time. I wouldn't make that argument, but he's certainly one of the finest bowlers of all time. He went a bit wild, especially after... Well, I think even during his playing career, he had his issues, but especially after his playing career, a lot of drugs. a lot of partying, and it did unfortunately all eventually catch up to him. He passed away of a heart attack. I forget how many years ago now. But yeah, he basically destroyed his body through a lot of drugs. And alcohol, I assume. But, you know, alcohol's a drug, I guess. I don't know if there's an American sports equivalent of someone who had an amazing playing career, then exploded their own body on drugs for the next 10 years and then passed away really young. Probably. How old was Shane Warne when he died, actually? Shane Warne was 52. But yeah, pretty unbelievable bowler. Basically, there was a period in the 2000s where it was essentially Shane Warne versus Mutaya Muralidharan, who were both spinners, but both spinners of a different style. So Shane Warne was a leg spinner. So if you're looking down the pitch, Shane Warne turned the ball from right to left. Muralidharan was an off spinner, so his default delivery was to turn the ball from left to right, so the other way. And they're also like different grips and different releases. I wonder if there's a, hold on. Cricket ball grips. I wonder if I can find a good image for showing the different ways that you grip the balls for different bowling types. Not really. There's a lot of crazy pictures on this page, actually. Maybe I'm just going to take you to this Google Images search. There's a lot of very fun pictures on this page. I like this one. This one's fun. There's your swing bowling. I like this one. This one's good. Just a lot of very, like, crazy diagrams. The basic fast bowling grip is this. That's like the basic fast bowling grip. Is 2 fingers on top, thumb on bottom. And then this is more of a spinner's grip. This would be like finger spin. Well, yeah, this is also a good example of off spin. So-called finger spin because you're using your fingers to generate the torque in the ball. As opposed to leg spin or wrist spin, which is where you're releasing the ball out of the back of your hand, and often you're using the torque of your wrist to generate spin on the ball. Just a lot of good images on this page. Really enjoying it. My page full of balls. This is my balls page. Come and look at my balls. Hit a cricket ball so hard it's broken, split open. I think probably not from like a singular hit, but definitely there's been balls that have like split and been damaged just from like too much wear, for sure. And like happened mid-match. And again, that would be a situation where if the ball took that much damage, the umpires would bring out their little briefcase of previously used match balls and pick one that closely matched the current wear of the current ball and let them use that ball instead. It's very important. The ball condition is very important in cricket. In that, like, it has a massive impact on the way the ball will move in the air and off the pitch. In like both directions, like good and bad for the bowlers. Like the more a ball ages, generally the harder it is to make it do like anything, especially as a fast bowler. It will become sort of like softer and softer over time. Yeah, that makes it kind of tricky. So you'll often see, as soon as you can take a new ball, bowling teams will take the new ball. Anyway, I didn't intend to talk about cricket for however long I've talked about cricket, but I did. We're here now. There's still so much more I could explain as well. But then you're getting into the like nitty-gritty. Boom, 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 boom. I've just learned that Charles Leclerc is releasing music. Can you score 7 runs in 1 ball? Yes. If the bowler bowls a no ball and you hit it for 6, that's 7 runs. Also, there is a situation in which if you hit the ball, essentially you can score as many runs as, like, there's no upper limit to how many runs you can score. The main thing is the fielding team will throw the ball back to the middle eventually, and you can't run anymore without getting out. If the fielding team fucks up really badly and like throws it back, but whoever's standing there at the pitch doesn't catch it and it goes further behind and like runs away, the batters can keep running after that. And often there'll be something where the ball will get thrown, nobody will catch it, and it will go across the boundary on the other side of the pitch. And that will count as a boundary as well for the batting team. And those situations are called overthrows. Basically, they fucked up. The fielding team fucked up so bad. So theoretically, there's an unlimited number that you can score off any given ball. What clubs do I like? You mean in cricket? I don't follow any cricket clubs, generally. The exception of, like, the Auckland Aces, but for me, cricket is an international sport. I care about what New Zealand does. Roy Halladay, who threw a legendary perfect game, then another in the same season, became the biggest name in baseball, only to start fucking up constantly and retiring just 2 years after being the biggest name in American baseball. No, I don't think that is close. I think those are two different... Like, Warren never disgraced himself on the field. He was always the top of his game and retired as still one of the best bowlers in the world. Despite maybe being on a little bit of drugs sometimes. But, like, he was always a good player for the entirety of his career. Ended up dying while flying his private plane drunk and high. Now that's very Shane Warne type behavior, I would think. Sorry, not to go from one sport to another, but I'm very excited. It's car reveal season in Formula One. And Red Bull has unveiled their new car, and everyone's gone, oh, they've done that, have they? There's just a few kind of little differences that are kind of interesting with the way the suspension and front wing and stuff. But the maybe most remarkable thing is their side pod inlet. You remember when the new regulations came in, Mercedes tried that car that didn't have any side pods and just had like a vertical slit at the front of it. Red Bull's car appears to have a vertical slit as an inlet. They still have side pods, but they appear to have an inlet that is vertical as opposed to horizontal, which is what you would normally have on a Formula One car. So everyone's kind of going, huh. Interesting. When they show a car with 3 wheels. They did it. There was a Formula One car with 6 wheels for a while. I forget what it was. Holman, I think? No, Tyrrell. This guy. Oh, that image is tiny. Can I have a real image, please? This guy. There's also the fan car. The Brabham. This one. Had a little fan on the back. Basically, this was the early days of cars figuring out ground effect, which is where you like trap air underneath the car to keep the car stuck to the road. And they were like, let's just shove a big fan on the back that like blows air out really fast and gives us real sick traction underneath. And they banned it pretty quick. Yeah, cars got pretty crazy for a while. What was the what were they called? F1 were they called X-Wings? Little baby wings? Yeah, these shits were hilarious. They had these little fucking wings that just sat up here. These little tiny baby wings that stuck off the side of the car. The stupidest little shits you've ever seen in your life. They got banned pretty quick too. Designer of that F1 car just made a $5 million supercar that has the fan, despite the fact that it does nearly nothing on a street legal sports car. I love that. If they got rid of all non-safety restrictions, it'd get pretty boring pretty quickly, I think. Because the thing is, even if you don't have super tight regulations on like construction of the car, there is still always going to be a design that is the best that everybody will go towards. And then all that you would have happen is if you removed all non-safety regulations, then you suddenly have teams that can just spend millions upon millions, put a fucking new engine in the car every race, just have the most complicated aero setup you've ever seen so that it's completely on rails. Like even... There would then also become an argument over what counts as a safety regulation too, because there's a certain, you hit a certain point with design of cars going that fast where like your cornering speed reaches such high margins, and it's the reason why ground effect was banned in the first place, where like if something happened and your car experience some level of dramatic downforce loss for whatever reason, you will fly off the track and the driver of that car will die. So it's kind of hard to like decide what counts as a safety regulation. But yeah, it would become pretty silly pretty quickly. Thing in Vegas where a car ripped a manhole off the ground with its ground effect Air Force. That wasn't necessarily anything to do specifically with ground effect. It's just that as any F1 car, even if it doesn't have a great amount of ground effect, is going to cause an extreme amount of suction force as it passes over anything. That was a fault, nothing really to do with the cars. There was a fault entirely to do with whoever organized the Vegas race did not do a good enough job securing the manholes to make sure that they didn't get ripped up. It's happened before. If it's my understanding they want to win races, why don't they build cars that real oil slicks or perhaps little spikes? It's a good point. It's crazy that they don't do that. But yeah. The tech is we're just kind of in a place now with design where you just have to have regulations to make sorry, I hovered over a link there that started making noise. To make it competitive and to make it interesting. Like, putting restrictions makes people work within certain conditions. That kind of encourages interesting design in a way. Cars into Transformers, race them, then fight them like mechs. I feel like that that feels more suited to a NASCAR. I feel like they would do a good Transformer.
Jaaski Bobble.
Wyvern, thank you for the 6 months. Sorry, I'm completely putting off playing a game. Mostly because I just feel like my body is betraying me. Oh yeah, one of the Formula 1 cars is called V-Carb, I think. V-Carb 1. Because the team is called Visa Cash App Visa Cash App RB. I have to pee. Number 1 priority. I'm gonna go tinkle. I'll be right back. Hello. I'm back. Yeah, RB like Red Bull. But apparently it doesn't actually stand for anything according to the team. The bird is still on screen? That's fine. The bird can be part of the screen. Let's just, there you go. The bird can live next to Patrick. Oh, fuck, my back is so sore. Patrick analyzing the next mechanic. I can't stop thinking about that one tweet that's like, okay, Usher, the next is going to be a raid wide and then clock spots for spreads. Hold on, I'll find it. Okay, Usher. What if real life was like video games? It is. I don't like Usher Relative because that's gonna make me think of Uoth and Uauth. It's because in our raid group, whenever there's like a boss relative thing, look, one time I said Bird North in raid, and it stuck. Talking about, in fact, for the fight that's on screen, to talk about a boss relative thing. And now within our static, anytime there's something boss relative, it's whatever the boss is north. So currently we're dealing with Moth North, Moth South, Moth Left, and Moth Right. Or Morth, Mouth, Meft, and Might. My favorite directions. What's harder to explain, cricket or Final Fantasy XIV? Depends. Depends what you mean by explain. Explain so you have a fundamental understanding of what, like, the point of it is. They're the same. That's not true, Calistigro. You can. It is baseball. Cricket and baseball are the same sport. What soundtrack is this? Oh, Earthbound. And honestly, 14, the knowledge gap in 14 entirely comes down to learning the language. If you're talking about like raid difficulty and stuff, once you learn the language of raiding in Final Fantasy XIV, which will take you like one tier, you'll be a good raider. At the end of the day, everything is in, out, or spread or stack. And some variation on that. I don't know why my back is so sore. I must have slept real badly last night. October, do you care about Warden of the Seven Hues? Yes, I'm sending you a link. Oh, you've seen it? Okay, good. I guess maybe I'll play some runs of Vampire Survivors. I'm considering just running away. Because I think my friends are about to do some gaming online 2023. 2024, I mean, is the current year. And I might go eat food and join them. Friends other than me? Yeah, we've been my old, in fact, high school friends. We've recently been playing games every couple of weeks. It's been nice. Been mostly playing Unrailed the last few weeks. I've now made them all buy Lethal Company on sale though. But I don't know what we're playing tonight. No idea what the plan is. I usually join late.